Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Woods, and welcome to my channel. I've decided to do something a little more lighthearted this week, so I will be reviewing the 1996 movie Homecoming, starring Anne Bancroft as a crabby old woman whose 4 grandchildren were abandoned at a shopping mall by their mother. The children want her to take them in so that they will all be able to stay together and not be split up into 2 separate homes, but she wants nothing to do with that. I know this doesn't sound like a happy movie at all, but trust me, it is. It's based on the 1981 book by Cynthia Voigt, also entitled Homecoming. The book and the movie remind me a lot of Flowers in the Attic for a few reasons. First of all, both books are about children on their own, with the older sister and brother having to work together to take care of the younger ones. Only in Homecoming, the oldest girl is named Dicey. She's about 13 or so. Her brother James is about 3 years younger than her, if memory serves, so they're a bit younger than Kathy and Chris were at the beginning of the Doppelganger series. In both books, the kids are abandoned by their flighty mother, but in Homecoming, the mother is mentally ill. Thirdly, there were 2 sisters and 2 brothers, just like Flowers in the Attic, and the older of the 2 brothers is extremely intelligent in both books. In Flowers in the Attic, the little girl Carrie is a wild one, and her brother Corey is quiet and reserved. In Homecoming, on the other hand, it's the little boy who's the wild one, and the little girl who's so quiet that people believe she might be mentally disabled. It's possible she could be slightly autistic, or on the spectrum, or she could just be shy. She does start talking more toward the end. Also, another big similarity between the 2 stories is that there is a tough old granny in both. Only the grandmother in Homecoming is not nearly as brutal. And religion plays a little bit of a part in Homecoming like it does in Flowers in the Attic. The Tillerman children in Homecoming have a cousin named Eunice, who feels it's her obligation as a Christian woman to take in the 2 girls and send the 2 boys to live with someone else. Dicey, unsurprisingly, decides to go looking for a better offer, and so she ends up with her bitter old Grammy. It's her first time meeting her maternal grandmother, and let's just say it's off to a rocky start. But it's still preferable than to stay with a God-fearing Eunice, who isn't mean, just a bit sanctimonious, and doesn't exactly have the kids' best interests at heart, even though I can still empathize with the fact that Eunice is not in a position to be raising 4 kids on her own. She's not a bad woman, just not the best option out there. I also want to note that the Tillerman children's mother had 2 brothers, just like Corinne in Flowers in the Attic. The mother, Corinne, had 2 brothers. So that's an interesting thing to note. And one of the brothers died. One of Liza Tillerman's brothers died. And in Flowers in the Attic, we learn that one of Corinne's brothers, I think actually both of her brothers died, according to the first book. But we learn that one of them maybe didn't die later on, but I won't get into that. That's another story. So the movie opens with the kids and their mother leaving their home either in the middle of the night or very early in the morning to go to their Aunt Scylla's. There's a quick shot of one of the boys peeing on the side of the road, and then they're in Pewaukee, Connecticut. I assume I'm pronouncing it right. I don't see anything about such a place actually existing, but I suppose it's a great place to end up after taking a little whiz at the edge of a forest. I'm pretty sure that in the book, little Sammy was blonde. But whatever. I also didn't picture James having long hair that made him look like Dicey from behind. Maybe I didn't read closely enough, because I don't imagine their mother Liza Tillerman was staying on top of their haircuts. So the movie probably got it right. They stop at a mall. The mother gets out and tells Dicey to watch the younger kids. I get the feeling Dicey is used to being asked to watch the younger children. In 2024, I'm thinking 4 kids alone in a car in a mall parking lot would be a huge red flag, but I think this was supposed to take place in the 70s or 80s. The kids have to resort to eating the sandwiches their mother packed for them, but I kind of get the feeling this was the reason she packed them sandwiches in the first place. I don't think they were for the ride to Aunt Scylla's. Furthermore, we'll find out something about Aunt Scylla that further makes me suspect that the mother knew all along that she was going to be abandoning her kids in a mall parking lot. I can't think of any reason for her to have gone in there without them in the first place, so it seems premeditated when she doesn't come back. I don't think she ran into Ted Bundy or anything, though this might have been around the time he was active. And who knows, maybe he was in a fictional town called Pewaukee at one point. He seems to have been everywhere else you could possibly imagine. Dicey says she'll go inside and look for their mother. The younger sister already has trauma from the fact that her mother hasn't returned yet because she pleads with Dicey not to abandon her like their mom did. Dicey doesn't have any luck finding their mother, though. Enough time goes by that the kids end up having to buy dinner at the food court. Not sure where they got the money. Their mother probably gave it to them because, once again, she clearly knew they'd be needing it. Dicey decides they'll have to walk to Aunt Scylla's because something clearly happened to their mother, but maybe their mom will find her way to Scylla's somehow and meet them there. The older daughter is living in a fantasy world, but she doesn't want to call the police because she's worried they'll be split up, and this is likely a sad reality they're faced with. This movie also reminds me a little of The Cement Garden by Ian McEwan, which was about 4 kids, an older girl, her 2 younger brothers, and her younger sister, who were left alone when both their father and their mother ended up dying. After their mother's death, they hid her body in the basement so that the authorities wouldn't find out they were orphans. In The Cement Garden, the older 2 end up messing around with each other, so it's kind of like Flowers in the Attic in that regard. And it was also made into a movie. And while I'm coming up with a list of similar movies, we can't forget Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Lots of stories out there about kids on their own who pretend that everything's cool so that they don't have to get the authorities involved. At one point, while Dicey's alone in the mall while the kids wait in the car, a security guard gives her trouble, but she escapes, with him following her, and somehow manages to lose him in the empty parking lot before getting to her car. Not sure how she managed to get that much of a head start on him, but whatever. The kids end up sleeping in a little patch of grass hidden by a little circle of trees off to the side of the parking lot, yet somehow the security guard never runs into them again. Maybe he figured he wasn't being paid nearly enough to bother. Maybe his shift ended the second Dicey dashed out the doors of the mall. We'll never know. The next day, they start walking to Scylla's. They have $9 on them, and they have to stretch this out as best they can. Dicey does well with the little money they have because this was back when $9 was actually worth something. They find what looks like an abandoned house, and they have themselves a hot dog dinner in the backyard, roasting those suckers over an open fire. So desperate are they for some good food that Sammy fantasizes about watermelon for dessert. James longs for an ice cream sundae, and Sammy realizes an ice cream sundae is indeed what he actually wants. He simply forgot he was a kid for a second with that crap about the watermelon. But can you blame him? These are trying times. All Maybeth wants is their mother back. The mood turned somber. Maybeth doesn't speak much, but when she does, she imparts words of wisdom. She's probably about 8 years old. She's also a good little singer. Maybeth is played by Hannah Hall, who also played Jenny Curran in Forrest Gump and one of the sisters in the Virgin Suicides. She's the only one of the kid actors I recognize. The next morning, they wash up in the bathroom sink. They eat some bananas with peanut butter, a decent meal even when you're not desperate. They steal a boat to aid in their travels. They claim to be borrowing it, but I don't think they understand what that word actually means. They sleep in a graveyard. I don't know how they know where they're going. I assume they're using a map. Pretty soon they are left with only 26 cents. Sammy is afraid they're going to starve to death. Dicey says it takes more than a few hours to starve to death. She cleans windows at a store in order to make some money and uses the cash to buy milk for the kids. Nobody seems to pay any attention to the fact that there are 4 dirty kids walking along the side of the road, all alone, looking as though they're about to faint from hunger and exhaustion. They end up at Yale, where Dicey meets a college student named Wendy. Wendy offers to buy her dinner. She lets him know she's not alone, and so he is stuck feeding 4 children instead of 1. But he seems like a decent guy who is only looking to be helpful. He lets the kids stay in his room. Other students in the hallway watch on as though they have no idea what the heck is going on and don't really want to know. He gives them a ride to their Aunt Scylla's the next day and spares them the hassle of having to walk the rest of the way. He leaves them alone on their aunt's doorstep, but they have his number if they need him. I get the feeling they won't be calling him, even if Aunt Scylla never shows up. As it turns out, Aunt Scylla is dead. They meet her daughter Eunice, who is actually their cousin once removed, not their second cousin like she assumes she is. She immediately calls the police upon finding out they've been abandoned by their mother. The police have found the vehicle in the mall parking lot and give Eunice the money from the future sale of the car. She tucks it away for safekeeping. The kids find out they have a grandmother named Abigail. They take a look at a picture of her. As a kid, she had wild, uncombed hair. Eunice is a religious woman who goes to church every morning and feels called to take in the 2 girls, but can't be bothered raising 2 boys. She feels she is not in the position to do so, and Dicey doesn't like the idea of her brothers being sent to live with another family. So she and the kids slip away in the middle of the night, taking the envelope with the cash that Eunice had tucked away. They use the money to take a bus to Crisfield, Maryland. They are hoping that, despite their grandmother's reputation, she will be willing to take the 4 of them in and care for them. They leave a note for Eunice to let her know where they're going. So they're runaways, but respectful runaways. James just wants to be a regular runaway. In Crisfield, Dicey leaves the kids behind so that she can walk the 7 miles to their grandmother's house and scope the situation out. Dicey might be resourceful, but she sure is dumb to think leaving behind 3 young children in a foreign place is a good idea. She seems to think if something bad is going to happen, better it just happen to her. I'm not following this logic. Hasn't it occurred to her that something bad could happen to 3 young children left alone on a wharf? She leaves them some money for lunch. Once again, I'm not sure how the heck she knows where she's going. This farm is like 7 miles away. She did talk to a woman at a corner store and ask where Abigail Tillerman lived, but I'm pretty sure you can't give very detailed directions for a farm that's 7 miles away, unless there's only one road in this town and in the neighboring ones. And who knows, maybe there is. The woman warns Dicey that she's making a mistake seeking out Abigail. Abigail's claim to fame is that she once threw a phone through the phone company's window. Dicey does find Abigail's house pretty easily. She uses the ruse that she wants to help out around the farm. Abigail doesn't want or need the help, but Dicey is so pushy that Abigail eventually says she might as well stick around for lunch, and they eat together. Abigail remarks that she always wondered what a human being would taste like, especially a baby or a child. You wanted a red flag? There's your red flag. Abigail eventually reveals that she knows who Dicey is because Eunice called her to give her a heads up. She says she can't keep them, but they can at least stay for the night. Dicey and the woman take a boat back to the wharf where Dicey left her siblings. Only Sammy remains. The 2 others went off looking for Dicey. What did she expect they would do given what a hothead James is? He was always questioning her authority. Of course he wasn't going to stay put. The grandmother says there's no point looking for the kids because Dicey's already abandoned them and what's done is done. By the way, it blows my mind that James would actually leave a 6-year-old child behind, all by himself. Like, what the heck was he thinking? Ridiculous. I suppose the real reason Sammy stayed behind was because someone had to give the news to Dicey that James and Maybeth were on their way. So that seems a little bit like a plot device to me. Somehow, James and Maybeth find their way to the Tillerman homestead as well. And the kids must find a way to be useful to their grandmother so they can delay the inevitability of their return to their obnoxious cousin. I won't say any more. You'll have to watch the movie to find out the rest, though it's no big mystery what happens. But there is a scene where the grandmother and Dicey have a talk and we find out more about the grandmother's history. You'll have to watch the movie to find out the details. It's available on Prime and also on Tubi. Some things that stood out to me. I thought Anne Bancroft did a great job as the tough-as-nails grandmother, who was eventually revealed to have a softer side. The actress Kimberly Peterson, who played Dicey, did a great job as well. She more than held her own in her battles with the grandmother. I have to say that the meals the grandmother prepared for the kids looked really tasty. Potatoes, corn on the cob, maybe not so much the crabs, but as she warmed to them, she made them chicken and even bought a little cake. Watching heartwarming movies like this always makes me hungry for good food. I admired the way Dicey stood up for her siblings, even though she was a bit of a dummy at times too, leaving them alone at a wharf like she did. It's been a while since I read the book, but I'm pretty sure this movie did it justice. I watched the movie with my grandmother a few years ago and she loved it. She wanted me to order the book online so that she could read it. She kept it at her home, and then when she passed, the book got lost, so I never got it back. But I have fond memories of bonding with my grandmother over this story. I give the movie 5 stars. Thank you for watching and have a great night.